What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Thursday morning to you, and welcome to this devotional series. We're in Mark chapter 9. Read a really cool story yesterday about a dad who brought his son to Jesus. There's this kind of wrestling match he has internally with wanting to believe but struggling with his doubt. And then, of course, I want to pick up because at the end of that story, there's something really, really cool. So Mark chapter 9, and Jesus says this in verse 23, speaking to the dad, and he goes, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." Well, immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." We talked about that yesterday. The next verse says, "When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying, 'You deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more.' Then the spirit cried out, convulsed greatly, and came out of the boy. And the boy became as one dead, so that many said, 'He is dead.' But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, 'Why could we not cast it out?' And he said," Jesus responded and said, "Well, this kind comes out by nothing but prayer and fasting." So, again, I think the disciples are showing some natural frustration. You're like, wait a minute, I've been casting out demons, and why did I get stuck on this one? And then Jesus, you showed up, and it's like no big deal for you. Like, what was the difference? And Jesus points to this idea of, well, there's some things that only come out by prayer and fasting, meaning like there are levels of really what we might just call like the power and presence of God operating through your life. Like there's levels of that. So the disciples had hit a certain level, and he goes, man, you're going to have to go a little bit deeper to handle something like this. And so what you find is that he points to prayer and fasting. And again, the disciples are in the moment of opportunity. They don't have time to go pray and fast, which means Jesus is pointing to, no, you should have already been praying and fasting. You should probably stay in a state of praying and fasting. And if you're always in a state of praying and fasting, then you are always ready for whatever opportunity presents you. And so that's the idea of us just saying, hey, now again, prayer is something that's so common in our Christian world today. And that's kind of a Christian cliche. Anytime somebody's going through something, like, oh, you should pray about that. And so prayer, what I find is this: prayer is not the answer to anything. It's the answer for everything. Meaning, like, it's not like if you are struggling with this thing in your life, prayer might not be the answer. Like I tell people that all the time. Like if you struggle with greed, prayer's not the answer. You can pray all day. What you have to do is cut a check. You need to give away money until it hurts so bad that greed starts breaking off your heart. But prayer should be behind and supporting and involved with everything. And so that's the prayer component. But the one other component that is mentioned here, of course, is prayer and fasting. And I think this is the one where we don't grasp this or put this into our daily routines and habits and weekly routines and habits. But I want to encourage you, we fast every year here in January, but I want to make sure that fasting is kind of built in. I know people for health reasons fast regularly, whether it's intermittent fast or 24 or 3-day fast. I know people that fast during, like a specific time period of like, hey, I always fast on the first of the month or always fast on Mondays. Like you got to find your rhythm and routine. And if fasting is something you've never done before, I'd like you to really prayerfully consider, like, how often should I be fasting? What does that look like for me? And maybe it is. Maybe it's just a sun up till sundown. Maybe it's a 12-hour thing. Maybe it's a 24-hour thing. But like, is fasting a part of my regular discipline? Because when Jesus addresses it in the Sermon on the Mount, he goes, well, hey, when you fast, but he starts teaching on fasting. But he begins with the phrase, when you fast, as if he had an expectation that this is just something that we should have normalized as Christian behavior. We should have normalized prayer and fasting and giving according to the Sermon on the Mount. And so again, fasting, that idea of abstaining from something for the purpose of focusing on God, primarily abstaining from food and doing water only for a period of time. And again, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual benefits to fasting are everywhere. And so that idea, though, of saying, hey, I'm going to combine my prayer time and my fasting time and have that built into my life so that it's always there. When trouble hits or tragedy hits, I don't have to go and pray and fast to get caught up. I've already been praying and fasting. I'm ready to go, and I'm going to keep praying and fasting. Can I get an amen to that? Church, let us always be prepared for the work that God has before us. Church, I love you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.